Let's say hello now to Dan. And Dan is Cards on Cardio on Instagram. He's got a wonderful account. If you are not already following Dan, what's been taking you so long? Jump in there, give him a follow. You'll see a collection that seems very true to a collector for sure. Before we get into the crux of our conversation, Dan, what was the last card that you bought?
My most recent pickup came courtesy of Heritage, in which it was a 1953 signed Otto Graham Bowman card. I received that late last week, and it's just a part of the run that I'm putting together as a part of the signed Playing Days Otto Graham
So Otto Graham, the Hall of Fame Cleveland Browns quarterback from the 50s or so, 40s.
Right. Yep. Rookie card, 1950 Bowman. He has a couple of variations, large and small, kind of Bowman cards in there as well. But yeah, just it's somewhat difficult because he has the kind of on the tail end of his playing days. He has his college uniform card as well. There was a part of that top set. So yeah, that's just kind of something I've slowly been adding to over the years.
So to understand where Otto Graham fits and where others fit in your collection, which we'll get to all of it, I'm really excited to share those with people. Give us a little bit about your collecting background and kind of how you got to where you are now.
Sure. I grew up in a really small town in Montana, and it was outside of a larger town called Billings, which is now our largest city. And growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, we would have to go into Billings to get groceries and things of that nature. So, it's probably like 92-ish. We started going into, there were a handful of card shops there. So when we go in for our groceries and all of the things that we needed to bring back to our small town, we would swing into the card shops. My dad and I got the Beckett magazine, every month. So I was always flipping through kind of, what things were valued as. And we were, I guess in Montana, you're either a Broncos or a Seahawks fan, it seems like. So we were big Broncos fans. We had a cat named Elway. So we actually went into the shops in Billings, and there were always a lot of Broncos cards. Terrell Davis, kind of came later as well. So yeah, I collected then up until probably about 98. So I've pulled some Kobe Bryant rookies, things like that too. But really for about 8 years or so, I was a pretty serious collector back then. As serious as you could be with one gas station in your town that might have cards once in a while.
And then did you go straight through from 98 till now, or was there a break in there?
No, and one of the cards that we're going to talk about today kind of got me back into collecting. It was about 2019. I love to read, and one of my favorite authors, his name is Timothy Egan, and Timothy Egan wrote a book called Lasso the Wind, and I read it in 2019, and there was a story about Bill Murray in it, in which he owned a baseball team. And as I was reading through this story, something in the back of my mind said, man, I wonder if there were baseball cards from this Butte, Montana baseball team that he once owned. So I have been selling on eBay since about 2005. So I just hopped on and searched, and sure enough, there were a couple of them on there with Bill Murray, front and center with the mountains of Butte in the background. And from there, I started to kind of pick up Bill Murray cards, and then it kind of slowly snowballed into what I've collected today.
And typically, I don't push this far into someone's life, so only say as much as you're comfortable. But I think it's instructive because it will help explain why you collect who you collect as we get later on into it. So tell us what was going on between 98 and 18 with Dan that maybe will give us some instruction for what we're going to hear here in a little bit.
Yeah, so I moved around a lot growing up. My dad worked in an industry that kind of created a lot of momentum in different directions. So I think once we moved from that small Montana town, we moved to Cleveland, Ohio. And that was really the start of my Browns fandom. We were there right before they came back after leaving for Baltimore. So we were in Cleveland, and my dad got us season tickets when the Browns built their new stadium. So we spent the weekends going to Browns games. And since then, I've been a huge fan and try and go to one game every year in different stadiums. So really, it was just really hectic at that age. I didn't really have time for hobbies. I was moving so much, just trying to maintain relationships with friends and trying to get acclimated to my new scenery. So really, I think it was just so chaotic. Cards just kind of fell to the away side for a while.
So let's stick now with the Cleveland end of it.
Yeah.
A lot of historic figures in Cleveland sports with the Browns: Otto Graham, Jim Brown, Bernie Kosar, Myles Garrett. How did you land on Otto Graham as the Browns player who you decided to collect? And also, why don't we back up just a little bit? And why don't you talk about the different lanes of your collecting?
Yeah.
I do want to pick them apart one by one, but for the sake of the listeners, why don't you kind of say, if someone were coming to your place and was going to take a look through your collection, what types of cards would they see more broadly?
Sure. I think it's a pretty wide gamut with a lot of vintage. So I'm a big collector of Jesse Owens. That's one of the lanes that I'm very involved in, specifically his stuff from 1936. Big Jackie Robinson collector as a result of his historical significance. And then just early 2000s, late 90s on-card patch autos. Just the ability to have a game used relic in addition to an on-card auto. Those are really things that intrigue me, and I've been picking up again over the years, kind of adding to sets, finishing sets, things of that nature too. But in terms of the Browns, I got really heavy into Baker Mayfield. Again, it was 2019. I was really excited to get back in the hobby, so I picked up some pretty big Baker Mayfield cards. And then over the years, I have added some Joe Thomas, exquisite RPAs, a few Myles Garrett cards, Nick Chubb. He was he's now gone, which is kind of leaves a hole as a Browns fan, but he was certainly someone that was exciting to watch and just really plays the game the right way. Just a really hard-nosed, good human being. So yeah, it's been somewhat difficult though. I did buy a pretty big Deshaun Watson card once we signed him, just to kind of have some involvement in his art, but that hasn't worked out well, and I've since offloaded all of those. So yeah, I've picked up, kind of sold along the way, but as time has gone on, I've just gravitated more and more towards Otto Graham and his significance. Winning 7 championships, and again, just a really hard-nosed, tough individual that even post-playing days, was a coach and very involved in the NFL and kind of where it's at today. I went to a Monday night game last year in Denver to watch the Browns play, and actually wore an Otto Graham jersey. Didn't see any others, but got some high fives. A lot of folks saying, "Yeah, that's the first time I've seen someone wear an Otto Graham jersey." So yeah, I think just over the years I've gotten away from the kind of ultra modern collecting. Just growing up in the 90s, I was a big rated rookie collector. So that's really kind of how I started, in addition to Baker Mayfield. I was picking up, Josh Allen's, different Kyler Murray's, things like that too. Just base card rated rookies, because that's what I knew. And then as time has gone on, I've gotten to know a lot more about, the different variations and numbered variety cards and things of that nature, which now I kind of gravitate towards. But and somewhat of an echo chamber, that's what I gravitated towards.
For the younger listeners, they might not know it now, but there was a time when the Browns were an NFL powerhouse, right? In the pre-Super Bowl days. Was there ever any sort of dabbling or internal pressure that you felt to go after Jim Brown, or was it always Otto Graham?
I do have some Jim Browns, absolutely. I went to the Missoula card show and set up as a dealer a couple of years ago, and was able to make a deal for his rookie card and a PSA 4. It's a pretty nicely centered copy. Have some of his patch autos as well. So I think if I find them for the right price, I will pick them up and kind of add them to the PC. But I think in terms of like my top 10 things that I gravitate towards, it's more if I see something like his flawless stuff that's game used, on-card auto, fetches a premium. But that's always things, if I come across it and, can get it for the right price, I'm always interested in. But he and Graham are certainly the two that kind of rise to the top in terms of things that I collect for the Browns.
Terrific. So for those of you listening, I just put on the screen Dan's 52 Bowman Small Otto Graham. It's an auto. I'm always fascinated by this next step that's taken. You've explained your Cleveland background, Otto Graham, amazing, all those championships. When did you then make the leap into deciding to want to get the full Otto Graham auto run?
I was watching them on eBay and just as one of my safe searches and just kind of seeing what they were going for, getting to know the market. And then it was Koopy Cards, I think, had one posted that was the second year card of Jim Brown. And when you look at the pop report of that specific card, it's the highest in the pop report, highest graded, had a inscribed auto to an individual, which I didn't love, but it was in that ballpoint pen, highest one on the pop report in terms of grades. So I actually reached out to him, and that's how it started. He had it in his possession, and when I looked at how many of these existed, looking around 10 for each of his cards in the PSA prop report that are signed, a lot of them are inscribed to people. Some of them aren't the best copies. A lot of them are, beat up pretty bad, kind of hard to read the signature as well. So when I saw this one pop up on Heritage, and again, SGC, this pop report doesn't exist. I reached out to SGC, put in this serial number, and they said, these don't exist anymore in our pop report because we don't authenticate autos anymore, which I learned. But they said as a part of going through Heritage, PSA has kind of given us also their vote of confidence that this is legit, kind of no questions asked. If it comes back as a forgery, we're going to refund you. So when I saw this one in the red ballpoint pen with the best wishes inscription, I knew it was one that if I didn't pick it up and go after it, I'd probably never see it again. Because there are a handful of vintage collectors, especially on Instagram, that love to tuck these away. And once they get them, they sell them at a premium. So when something like this does come up for auction, it's something that I'm, going after pretty heavily. And whether or not that means I need to move quite a few things to attain them, that's perfectly fine with me. Because again, there's a good chance that you're not going to see this, but if you do, you're going to pay 3 to 4x what it goes for at some of these auctions.
Yeah, just beautiful red ballpoint pen, just a fantastic auto. And I'm also enamored by the label.
Yeah, right.
Deceased. It's on the label, deceased, 2003. Gosh, yeah, I'd never seen an SGC authenticated autograph before, and for them to put his when he died on there is a wonderful touch. I would never crack that out.
Right. What's funny about these two on most of his cards from that time period, there's some reference to him loving music, and it's the same with this one as well. I think on this sense, it just said likes music or something along those lines. But there was something about, he was just known for always listening to music pre-game, which maybe wasn't such a big thing back then. But the fact that they had to point this out on these Bowman cards kind of cracks me up as I read these.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And before we get too far away, because you mentioned it before, and it's my fault for not putting this up there, I want to add in here the Bill Murray card. Talk a little bit about this Bill Murray card, because you mentioned that he owned a team from an area where you grew up.
Sure. So right before PSA shut down because of all those submissions that flooded in during COVID, right? I picked this card up prior to that, and I think it was a 14 card submission of things that I had just for my personal collection from the late 90s. Like I said, had some Shaq cards, some Kobe cards. Didn't know a whole lot about, what they might grade. I wasn't looking a ton at surface. It was mostly corners. That's what I was concerned with. So when I was able to find this card on eBay, I sent this in with a 14 card submission. And when I got him back, was it a year and a half later? It's all those cards flooded back in from PSA. This one came back, and wouldn't you know it gemmed, which I was just totally floored by. Didn't know what I was doing. Just kind of stumbled into it, looked at the pop report. It was now a pop 2. It's since become a pop 3. But again, as you're kind of looking at this card in the background, there are some mountains that I do a lot of trail running in. I've competed in races in those mountains, which also kind of adds to it. But Bill Murray and his brother, Brian, owned some baseball teams. And his rookie card, Bill Murray's, is actually the 1988 Trappers card that he owned. It was in Salt Lake City. And there's a card of Bill Murray. I have that in a PSA 8, which I also graded. But there's a card with he and Brian that are on it as well, which can fetch a premium. But to me, it's just a really rare, kind of undervalued card, I think. I grew up loving Saturday Night Live. My mom actually went into labor in Idaho while they were watching it. So that was always kind of the running joke, is always watching SNL, and kind of just growing up watching Bill Murray movies. But again, something about that book just really piqued my interest. And the fact that a few minutes went by and I was able to find this card. And then not only that, send it off to PSA and it comes back a Gem Mint 10. I was just ecstatic, right? Just really floored me. But yeah, it was just one of those kind of fate circumstances that occurred that kind of started my collecting journey again.
Well, that's great. I'm saving deliberately the Jesse Owens conversation for the end.
Yes.
Because that's what I really, really am excited to get into. Getting back to football, if you go through your IG feed, you see Bart Starr, one of the contemporaries of Otto Graham. To some degree, they overlapped as well. But here's another one who was a direct rival of Otto Graham, and that was Johnny Unitas. And it seems like you have expanded your interest in these vintage NFL quarterbacks.
Right. It all started with rookie cards of those folks that you mentioned. And I think I made a list and I said, okay, who are the most impactful players from the 40s, 50s, 60s? And I started just knocking out all of their rookie cards, kind of looking at high eye appeal, low grade, things of that nature too. And then once I started to think about it and the impact that Johnny Unitas had on the NFL, I think he was born in the early 30s. He lost his dad really young. Johnny Unitas did not have a easy path to the NFL either, which is somewhat of a misnomer. He was drafted in the 9th round by the Steelers and was actually cut, and then was brought in by the Colts to back up a quarterback. And he didn't play great, but this quarterback who was ahead of him broke his leg. And then Johnny Unitas actually came in, was lucky to even have a spot on the roster. And then the next year became their full-time quarterback. And then kind of the rest was history after that. I think he won 4 championships or 3 championships. It does fall in line with those same years, kind of as Otto Graham, where, are they NFL championships? Are they not? Are they part of the AAFL? Some of those leagues did merge and then kind of make the NFL. They're in around 1960. But Johnny Unitas passed away in 2002. So kind of similar time frame to Walter Payton in my eyes. So there just aren't a ton of numbered game used jersey on card autoed Johnny Unitas cards. So to me, that was really appealing. There's certainly scarcity if you kind of think back, especially in those kind of late 90s, early 2000s sets. The first Sign of the Times, I think, was 1997, which he also makes an appearance. And those cards go for a significant premium. So years ago, I kind of just decided to go all in on anything Unitas that popped up. And it's very hard to find some of these cards.
Which card are we looking at now on the screen?
Yeah, so this is the piece of history from 2001. It's numbered to 50. So there is a set of this that is not numbered, in which I collected the whole set. And then very slowly after that, I've been kind of offloading those and then picking up these golds. This is the gold variation, and they're all numbered to 50 with the same checklist. But I'm about halfway through the golds, and there have been some really great collectors on Instagram that have gotten a hold of me as they've seen them pop up that have allowed me to add to this gold set. But really, anything numbered on card auto with the game used jersey of Johnny Unitas, I'm going to go all in on that kind of stuff.
Is there what's the community like collecting wise for Unitas and other vintage quarterbacks?
Unitas not as much compared to like the Bart Stars, and I think a lot of it is because he was a Baltimore Colts player, right? So it's kind of this weird lane where some folks from Baltimore collect him, some folks from Indianapolis collect him as well. He has that 99 passing the torch that's dual autoed with he and Peyton Manning. That's the first 99 of which are autographs. So that one's kind of both lanes for both of those communities. But I would say that there is demand. I think it grows every year as kind of folks realize just how scarce some of this stuff is, especially compared to, Walter Payton, as I brought up earlier. Similar sets. He died a little bit younger or a little bit earlier compared to Unitas, but Unitas died young of a heart attack, I guess relatively young. So again, he wasn't able to sign even into the years in which Otto Graham was able to sign as well. But compared to some of his contemporaries, he just doesn't have as many cards like this on the market.
That's just, it makes sense with when he died. But in terms of the appreciation or lack thereof, because he was in Baltimore, it's noteworthy to remember that when he retired, he was the greatest NFL quarterback of all time. And
Right.
when Montana came along and started winning, this is when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
I remember the conversation was, can he be greater than Unitas?
Right.
Right. And of course, now he's not forgotten. He's a legend, right? But his name doesn't necessarily come up in the conversation when you hear Marino, Montana, Brady,
The
Mahomes,
Elways, right.
Manning, Elway, and I'm jumping up and down like Unitas.
Yeah.
Don't forget the history. Remember Unitas.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's somewhat forgotten, especially with some of the newer collectors who have come in recent years. But his impact on the game, is it's absolutely significant. But again, his road to the NFL wasn't quite as rough as or was significantly rougher than most people also realize.
You mentioned sort of like this legacy and these memorable types of athletes, and very few athletes in American history are as memorable as Jackie Robinson. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at some point you posted, maybe it was a story, maybe it was a post, what I think might have been the entire playing day run of Jackie Robinson's cards. Is that right? Have you been able to put that together?
Yep. So that was my goal. Again, kind of going back years, probably around 2020. I set a goal to, I'm gonna go for the run and kind of just slowly put it together. I was able to do so, which was incredible. And the 48 leaf, 49 leaf that I was able to add came through Love of the Game auctions, which was also pretty neat to be able to work with them and for a SGC2. And then after having it for a while, I decided, I think what I'm going to do is use some of these to move up into a higher graded kind of just beautiful card that really represents all things Jackie Robinson. And to me, it was, hey, where can I find a really good 1952 Topps? Because to me, I think it's his best looking card. In terms of significance, of course, being the 1952, that's just where my decision led me. So I was able to work out a deal with the dealer, traded away a handful of those cards, including the leaf. But I was able to land, a really just beautiful version of this 52 Topps. That again is kind of my forever PC card for now. As we said that, we've all somewhat been guilty of that. But I was looking for just a above average eye appeal. When I looked at some of the kind of mid grade, if you get a perfectly centered 5, which there are some really good accounts on IG that are really focusing on eye appeal, which has just been really fun to watch. They can go for 2 to 3x what the typical 5 goes for. So to me, I was just looking for an above average, just beautiful centered 1952 Topps. The color on this in person is just unbelievable. It just pops. The surface, the surface just looks phenomenal. In addition, great registration. So it wasn't an easy decision, but I think for me, I was just trying to get rid of a little bit of quantity and just really move up into one quality, just beautiful example of this 1952 Topps. And what we're looking at is a SGC 5
And what we're looking at is a SGC 5 with 49 leaf. 49 leaf is a 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 I don't know how it's a 5. I don't know. I'm not sure how it's not higher, but whatever. This is not a podcast about disputing the grades. But congratulations on this. This card is incredible. The red is so vibrant on this card. And remind me again, what year did you pick this up? Ish.
It was a couple years ago. It's probably 23, maybe the beginning of 24, somewhere around there.
And I think that Jackie Robinson is beyond the conversation of explain to me why you collect Jackie Robinson. I think we all know why we're collecting Jackie Robinson. Where did you find this card? You said it was the auction. You said you found it?
No, it was through Dave Schwartz card, Ash.
Oh, Ash, of course.
Yes. Yep. So he had this listed, and when I saw the picture, it was in his display case, and it was kind of up in the kind of upper echelons of his display case. And I was kind of looking at my phone. I was like, "Is that a 52 tops?" And I asked him to send me a picture. I was like, "Good gracious, that thing's pretty." I think he had just picked it up, and as he does, his stuff can be gone in the blink of an eye, because he has a really good knack for finding this kind of high eye appeal stuff. So we were able to work out a kind of trade plus a little bit of cash deal. I offloaded quite a bit of my PC, but again, I have no regrets in doing so. Every time I look at this, I just can't believe that I own it. Kind of one of those feelings. Yeah, he was really good to work with, though.
To me, that's one of the funniest things about the hobby and the YouTube content, where you could just be watching something you're on Instagram or maybe you're on YouTube, and someone is scrolling by with their camera, and all of a sudden there is something, and you like, wait, what? And you have to rewind it or scroll back, and the next thing you know, the hunt is on. And there's one card I'll be looking for at the National. My primary hunt will be for a 48 Bowman Stan Musial. Just a beautiful card. Just want to add to the collection I have for some time. But vintage cards I like to see in person, right? But last night I was watching someone's video. I think it was, to give credit, I think it was Sammy Thunder. And he was giving credit to 5 vintage dealers you all should check out at the National. Okay, so I was kind of watching it, and I was kind of just doing other stuff. And I look up as he's looking at, I think it's Stan's Vintage Cardboard is the person's site. And as he's scrolling over this B-roll of Stan stock, there is a stack of 48 Bowman Musials, right? Including one that just looks, it's not graded, but it just looks exactly what I'm looking for, which is affordable for one, but also tolerable and inviting to the eye. But it's just one of the craziest parts of this hobby. So I'm glad that it's funny how you saw Ash's card and immediately reached out to him and were able to work out a deal and to help to land this beautiful card.
Yeah, I think I took a screenshot, kind of zoomed in. I was just trying to get the best picture that I could. But yeah, I totally understand that feeling. I sure enjoyed listening to you talk about you getting into your Leaf Jackie. That was one of my more favorite pieces of content that I've heard in recent years. So I know how much that card means to you, how much it means to me as well. And I'm by no means never gonna own one again. It just kind of was circumstantial, where it was kind of time to part ways, right?
Yeah, just to hear people talk when they pick up their own Jackies, and sometimes they'll get a note saying, "Hey, I got my first one. I got this 55," and just the joy and the excitement,
right?
It just hits different.
Since I've moved some of those Jackies, I've still been picking them up. I picked up a really nice 1950 Bowman of his, really nicely centered one from Kevin, the captain. Yeah, he was really great to work with. Similar kind of trade plus cash deal. And then I have his a 49 Bowman as well. That was kind of my first big boy Jackie. I bought that one through REA. It's a PSA 5 as well. Nicely centered. One of those cards I've had for quite a long time. But as a part of getting this, there was no way I was going to give up that Bowman, right?
Right. Incredible. There's no subtle or tactful way to transition away from Jackie Robinson. But if we're going to transition to anybody, then I think that Jackie would not mind if we were transitioning to Jesse Owens. What first attracted me to your IG page is Jesse Owens, the legendary, doesn't even do it justice, historical, whatever adjective you want to use, American track athlete who came to fame during the 1936 Berlin Olympics. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to appreciate what Jesse Owens did. It's another to go all in on the cards the way you have, because track and field is not a sexy lane for collecting cards, much less vintage track and field, right? Certainly there are some who are doing it. You're not a one of one, but there aren't a lot. Give us if you would, sort of your story with collecting Jesse Owens, how you got around to doing it, why you decided to collect him. And we're very glad that you did, but give us your Jesse Owens collecting background.
Sure. It's been just so much fun learning about some of these sets. It all really started due to Ohio State football, right? So while I was in college, I actually ran track for a Division I school. I was a sprinter for 5 years, redshirt a year, competed in the 100, 200, 400 meter dashes, both relays. So I was really passionate about track. It helped me pay for college. I've made all of my best friends, really through my collegiate track experience. Met my wife through track. So in 2006, I decided to go to the Ohio State-Michigan game when they were playing 1 versus 2. If you remember that, it was Troy Smith's senior year,
Sure.
Won the Heisman. The game was, I think, 39-42, just an incredible game to be at. While we're driving to the stadium, we pass the stadium, and I look over, and we were with a couple folks that I knew that had went to Ohio State, and they said, yeah, that's Jesse Owens Memorial Stadium. So I asked, oh my gosh, is that where the track team practices and competes? He said, yeah, they play soccer there as well. And to me, it's like, man, I totally forgot about Jesse Owens. And this light bulb kind of went off. And I thought, I'm going to do some digging into this human, because everyone around here is really into him. We're in kind of Jesse Owens land where he went to college. There's a massive stadium named after him. And shortly after, in 2007, Jeremy Schaap wrote a book, if you remember him from ESPN.
Sure.
It was called Triumph. And I think it was the untold story of Jesse Owens and Hitler's Berlin Games or something like that. So read the book when it came out. And then, gosh, I was just really enamored with Jesse Owens' story. Jesse Owens did write a book as well, which I have since read, but that was really my introduction into his totality of his story, right? From youth into high school to Ohio State, to becoming a Olympic champion. And then again, following the Olympics, he had a really, really rough road. Think of late 30s, early 40s America. So after kind of getting into Bill Murray and getting into all the rated rookies, I just didn't feel that passionate about it. It wasn't really driving me to build up this PC that I just loved. And then I came across a couple of Jesse Owens cards, and I thought, these things exist from 1936, and they're how much? So as I was kind of looking at what these are going for compared to Jim Thorpe cards and other really well-known figures from that era, I thought they were pretty darn inexpensive compared to what I was picking up. And then again, looking at the pop report for this card, for instance, I think there's around 20 in total between SGC and PSA. So they're extremely scarce. Germany back then produced many of the cards that I collect, and they are just absolutely gorgeous images, beautiful coloring, kind of ahead of their times. But when I say cards, they're really more photographs, because a lot of these went into albums that folks would collect and kind of put together. And that's why it's really difficult to find some of these cards like the one you're showing here from the Cosmos Olympia set that don't have some kind of glue residue or paper loss, things of that nature too, because folks are taking them off of these albums in which they were intended to be on, right? But on the back of them, there is information on the athletes, just like Jesse Owens, in German most of the time. So I think I started collecting, some of his kind of cheaper, easier to obtain cards. And what I did was put together a checklist and just started looking for stuff, again, that you'd see once or twice a year, oftentimes from German dealers that'll send them over to SGC or PSA and then sell them. A lot of them use Fanatics Live now. Some of them, are on eBay. But to me, it's just been a really, really fun passion project. I've now read that Triumph book a handful of times. And when folks ask me, how should I get into Jesse Owens? Do you have anything that you would recommend? It's always that book first. It's a really good biography of kind of all those events. But like you said, there aren't a whole lot of us out there. I think there are quite a few that do understand the significance of these cards. And this picture in particular, as I was going through, which cards to kind of showcase on your show, Dave. This one, I just love this image. He's in his uniform in which he participated in, has his bib number, and I just like to envision him standing in the center of the field, just filled with 100,000 Germans, a lot of them Nazis, and they're looking at this African American who Hitler promised was going to get embarrassed at his Olympics. There were rumors that Hitler had this stable of athletes that no one had heard about. So when Jesse Owens came to town, he was going to get demolished by these Aryan Germans, right? But of course, we all know what happened, and it was just an absolutely crazy turn of events. Jesse Owens, was born in Alabama. His grandfather was a slave. And then Jesse Owens moved to Cleveland. He was the youngest of 10 children as well. So they moved to Cleveland, coincidentally. And as the result of his dad looking for work. And I think somewhere around that time frame, there were 1.2 million people or so that moved from the South to the North. And that kind of, I think it's called like the Great Migration. Yeah, exactly. So that's what brought him to Cleveland. And while he was a junior in high school, there was a coach that just recognized, his muscular build at such a young age and his speed, and said, man, like this kid has a lot of promise. So he told Jesse, I know that after school you go and do odd jobs to kind of help support your family. So if you would like, I will meet you in the morning before school and we can do track practices. And Jesse later in life would attribute his success to the fact that this coach took him under his wing, volunteered his time prior to school starting to kind of build up what he saw in Jesse Owens.
Talk about what kind of who were the makers of the cards? What were the brands of the cards, and how did you go about learning the different Jesse Owens cards that were out there? Because I imagine that just like American cards from that era, there are variations and slight changes between one and the next. So how did you go about, once you read the book and became interested and thought, okay, maybe I'll add a card to this? How did you learn more?
Yeah, so there are a handful of checklists that exist out there that kind of help me go down this path. So as I was adding cards and kind of checking off the list, I was able to find out, what some of the different makers were of them. Many of them are European. There is an Ogden cigarettes card from 1937 that he is on as an individual that is in English, which again was kind of hard to find back then, but there are Swedish cards. And the other thing I did is this small community of Jesse Owens collectors. We kind of chat quite a bit about what we're seeing, what we're finding, and some of which we didn't know existed. And all of a sudden, this random card will pop up on eBay. We're like, man, what's the story behind this one? It's a random, a card from Norway that someone put in a pack of cigarettes commemorating the 1936 Olympics. And even to this day, there are cards like that will just randomly kind of show up on eBay. So luckily there are, some really good PSA registration folks that are folks that in the PSA registry rather, that have collected almost the entirety of the checklist. To me, I again really like to focus on the kind of 1936 sets, specifically his solo stuff. I kind of went down the rabbit hole of collecting everything from that kind of era, 1936 to 1940. And I just had so much of it. I've, again, kind of slowly offloaded everything that didn't have him individually on a card. But they're all shapes and sizes. Like this Cosmos set, it has large cards, it has small cards. Again, just based on where they were found again in different tobacco products, different gum products, cheese products. There's then Nestle actually came out with a set as well. I think that one was in the UK, which folks were pulling cards again, really to commemorate the 1936 Olympics. So these checklists have dozens, if not hundreds, of cards with every single Olympian on them, all the different teams, things like that too. So to navigate, can be overwhelming. But I think once I was able to develop a checklist and kind of see what exists, I was able to kind of start checking off those solo cards. And then over the years, I've been upgrading them. And then when one comes available, for instance, REA seems to just get some really good rare stuff once in a while from different collectors that I also know. And they're kind of in that same boat. They've collected hundreds of his cards from the 30s all the way up to the late 2000s, and they're kind of overwhelmed with how much they have. But there are resources out there, and I think every year it gets better and better. But it's just been a really fun journey to kind of navigate and then upgrade as these things do come available. Again, many of these have single-digit pop counts, so folks just hold on to these. Sometimes folks pass away and they just have boxes full of these Jesse Owens cards, and they come up for auction. And I've been able to add some in that capacity too. But really, that's kind of where I am in terms of how I'm collecting his stuff. But again, a lot of it's in German. A lot of it came from photo albums. So in the top four corners, you'll see little indentations where someone pulled it out of some kind of photo album. So yeah, I mean, it's really just beautiful imagery. Again, some of the colors on those cards just absolutely pop. They were far ahead of their time. But the problem is so many of them are really thin because they are essentially just little Polaroid picture. It's kind of when you're holding them. So to get something in a high grade can be very, very difficult. There is one PSA 9 of this card. There's a PSA 8, and I think maybe one or two PSA 7s. But in terms of this Cosmos example here, there is one SGC 7, and I think there are two or three 5.5s. And besides that, I think there are 7 on the whole pop count, but many of which have a small wrinkle just because they are just so darn thin.
When you post a Jesse Owens card, do you find that sometimes leads to a conversation from people who are not part of the Jesse community like you are, but just something about the card sparks an interest and it can lead to a discussion?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, all the time. Folks just asking, man, what's the story behind this card? Like, what a beautiful image. Do you know when this was taken? How can I add something like this? I get a lot of folks kind of reaching out with different questions like that for sure. There's a Mühlen Frank, I think that's how it's pronounced. It's a colorized large album set, and with just absolutely stunning pictures. I just added a SGC 7. I think it's a pop 1 or 2 to my PC of that set. But that one in particular, it's really hard to really justify how beautiful that thing is holding it in hand. When I set up in Missoula as a dealer and folks see those and they're like, man, like what, it just pops compared to kind of what we see today. Again, you're thinking of a card that's almost 100 years old, and the colors are just drawing folks, to this one corner of of my table. Yes, lots of random people just reaching out, and I think sometimes those hashtags do help on Instagram, where I'll just get random people just ask me questions about them, and hey, I have something like that. Would you be interested in it? And oftentimes I do own it. But yeah, I mean, I think that there are folks that are kind of entering this space more and more every year as well, just because they are so darn beautiful.
So as we begin to wind down here, when you have a collection like you do, what is next? Do you have a list? Are there certain things that you are targeting, or with something like this, whether it's Jesse Owens or whether it's Otto Graham, do you just sort of wait and see what appears and then pounce?
I think I had to learn the hard way that I was building up so much of a collection that I was kind of losing passion towards specific cards and just adding cards just to add cards. And as time has gone on, my kind of hit list shrinks. It seems like more and more each year, and I'm a lot more intentional with what I'm picking up. I think those signed Otto Grahams are a good representation of kind of where I'm going with my PC. I would say it's more so as things just kind of come to me or things pop up. I think just like everyone else, I have a eBay search list that's pretty extensive. But again, I'm kind of past that stage where I'm just, having mail days every day, and just kind of adding things and then putting it, into a box. So yeah, definitely as really unique items, especially specific to Unitas or Otto Graham, Jesse Owens, really high eye appeal, Jackie Robinson's. Again, I'm kind of adding that stuff as I come across it. But I think, into the future, that's going to kind of be how I focus on my PC, is just really how things come up, not force purchases or force additions, but the things just like you're saying with the 48 stand is something that you see. It's like, oh my gosh, when I get that thing in my hand, it's going to be with me for a very, very long time. And that's kind of how I feel about everything moving forward.
Dan, this has been so great. Thank you for sharing your collection and the thoughts behind the collection. If you want to check out more of Dan's collection, and you should, he is Cards and Cardio on Instagram. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. It's been a pleasure, man. Have a good one.